My name is Faith Harrington, 42 years old, and I made the worst mistake of my life 10 years ago. One heated argument, one cruel sentence, and I lost my daughter forever. You were a mistake, not your sister. The words still echo in my nightmares. I thought time would heal all wounds, that she would forgive me. But 10 years later, I'm still paying for those 7 seconds of anger. Before I tell you how my daughter disowned me that day, drop a comment letting me know if you've ever said something in anger you desperately wish you could take back. Life has a way of unfolding that sometimes leaves you wondering how you arrived at a particular moment. For me, that moment happened 10 years ago, but the story starts much earlier. I built a career as an interior designer after years of hard work and determination. The beautiful homes I created for clients stood in stark contrast to the broken home I eventually created for myself. I was divorced from Daniel when our daughters were young. Sophia was 10 and Jasmine was 8. The separation wasn't particularly ugly, just the sad unraveling of two people who had grown apart while raising children and building careers. Daniel wasn't a bad father, but he was an absent one even before the divorce was finalized. Weekend visits became monthly visits and then special occasions only. I was essentially raising 2 girls on my own. Sophia was my firstborn, my unexpected blessing. I won't lie, finding out I was pregnant at 24 with barely a year of marriage under my belt was terrifying. Daniel and I were struggling financially, living in a tiny apartment, and I was just starting to build my client base as a junior designer. The pregnancy wasn't planned, but after the initial shock wore off, I embraced motherhood with everything I had. Those early years were impossibly hard. I would rock Sophia to sleep and whisper promises in her tiny ear that I would give her the world someday. I worked during her naps, sketched designs while she played at my feet, and sometimes brought her to client meetings when childcare fell through. Some clients found it charming, the dedicated young mother, with the quiet baby who would someday inherit her creativity. Others were less understanding, and I lost jobs because of it. But Sophia and I had a bond that made everything worthwhile. She was my mini-me, strong-willed creative with an eye for beauty that revealed itself early. By the time Jasmine came along 2 years later, life was slightly more stable. Daniel had a better job, I had more consistent work, and we had moved to a small house with a yard for the girls to play in. Jasmine was different from her sister from the beginning. Where Sophia was bold and demanding, Jasmine was thoughtful and observant. Sophia commanded attention. Jasmine earned it quietly. I loved them both fiercely and differently, the way you do with children who require different things from you. The divorce changed our family dynamic, but not as drastically as you might think. Daniel had already been emotionally distant, so his physical absence wasn't the earthquake it might have been. I threw myself into giving my daughters everything I could, working overtime, taking on additional projects, stretching myself thin to provide them with dance lessons, summer camps, new clothes, and the 1,000 small expenses that come with raising children. For years, we were a team, the 3 Harrington women against the world. But as Sophia entered her teenage years, cracks began to form. The daughter who once proudly told everyone that her mom was her best friend began rolling her eyes at my suggestions. The child who used to help me pick out fabric swatches started slamming doors when I asked about homework. I told myself it was normal teenage behavior, that all mothers and daughters go through this phase. Jasmine, 2 years younger, watched her sister's rebellion with a mixture of fascination and fear. She remained my sweet girl, the one who still wanted to bake cookies on Sunday afternoons and tell me about her day at school. But I could see her studying Sophia, wondering if she too would need to pull away from me to grow up. What I didn't recognize then, what I see so clearly now, was how the sisters were competing for my attention in different ways. Sophia through defiance, Jasmine through compliance. And I, exhausted from working 60-hour weeks and managing a household alone, missed the nuances of their rivalry. I loved them equally but expressed that love differently based on what I thought each needed from me. Looking back, I can see how Sophia might have interpreted my frequent check-ins and attempts to connect as criticism, while Jasmine might have viewed my more hands-off approach with her as disinterest. I was trying to give each daughter what she seemed to need, but my exhaustion and stress sometimes clouded my judgment. By the time Sophia was 18 and Jasmine was 16, our household had settled into a pattern of tension, punctuated by moments of connection that gave me hope that we were going to be okay. I held on to those moments like lifelines, never imagining that one day, one argument, one terrible sentence would tear our family apart forever. The year Sophia turned 18 should have been filled with celebration. She had been accepted to Cornell University with a substantial scholarship, an achievement that made my chest swell with pride. The daughter of a single-mother interior designer had secured a spot at an Ivy League school. We hosted a small party with family and a few close friends, and I splurged on a cake from the fancy bakery across town rather than my usual homemade effort. During the celebration, I caught Jasmine sitting alone in the kitchen while everyone fussed over Sophia in the living room. Her eyes were fixed on her phone, but I could tell she wasn't really looking at it. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" I asked, sliding onto the stool beside her. "Fine," she answered with a shrug that spoke volumes. Just letting Sophia have her moment. I should have pressed harder, should have seen the pain behind her casual dismissal. But guests were calling for me to join a toast to Sophia's success. That moment in the kitchen would replay in my mind many times over the following months, the first clear warning sign I chose to ignore. As summer progressed, the tension between my daughters escalated. What began as typical sister squabbles over borrowed clothes and bathroom time evolved into something uglier. Sophia, riding high on her academic success, developed an entitled attitude that grated on both Jasmine and me. Simple requests like taking out the trash or helping with dinner were met with sighs and reminders that she was preparing for college and needed to focus on more important things. Meanwhile, Jasmine was flourishing in her own right, making honor roll, taking on leadership positions in school clubs, developing a talent for photography. But her accomplishments seemed to exist in Sophia's shadow. When Jasmine won a regional photography contest, Sophia barely acknowledged it. When Jasmine was selected for a prestigious summer arts program, Sophia managed to turn the dinner conversation back to her upcoming freshman orientation at Cornell. I tried to mediate to balance my attention and praise, but often found myself refereeing their increasingly hostile interactions instead. My work life added another layer of stress. I had taken on several high-profile clients in hopes of saving extra money for Sophia's college expenses. Even with her scholarship, there would be costs for housing, book supplies, travel home for holidays, 1,000 expenses that kept me awake at night calculating and recalculating our budget. The month before the incident was particularly brutal. One of my biggest clients decided to go in a different direction midway through a project, leaving me with half the expected fee and a damaged professional reputation. I was working 14-hour days trying to salvage the situation while still maintaining my other projects. Sophia and Jasmine seemed to choose this exact moment to escalate their warfare. They fought over everything: the car, the television space in the refrigerator, whose turn it was to do laundry. Household rules that had functioned reasonably well for years suddenly became battlegrounds. One evening, I came home after a particularly difficult client meeting to find them screaming at each other about a missing sweater. I stepped between them, physically and emotionally exhausted. "Enough!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "I cannot handle one more argument today." Sophia rolled her eyes. "Mom," she took my sweater and stretched it out with her fat shoulders. "I did not take your stupid sweater," Jasmine fired back, tears welling in her eyes. "And I do not have fat shoulders." "Girls, please," I begged. "I have a migraine forming, I've had a terrible day, and I just need some peace." "Whatever," Sophia muttered, storming off to her room. Jasmine remained in the living room, her body still tense with anger. I sat beside her on the couch and put my arm around her shoulders. "She always does this," Jasmine said quietly. "She always has to make me feel small." "I know it seems that way sometimes," I began. "No, Mom, you don't know," Jasmine interrupted, tears now flowing freely. "You don't see it because you're always taking her side. Sophia is going to Cornell. Sophia is so talented. Sophia? Sophia. That's not fair," I protested weakly, but even as I said it, I wondered if there was truth in her words. "You know what's not fair?" Jasmine asked, pulling away from me. "Being invisible in my own family. At least Dad treats us the same. He ignores us both equally." She went to her room, then leaving me alone with a pounding headache and the sinking feeling that I was failing at the one job that mattered most to me, being a good mother. That night, I lay awake, replaying the conversation, and many others like it. Had I favored Sophia? Had I neglected Jasmine's needs while focusing on Sophia's more demanding personality? I tried to remember the last time we had celebrated Jasmine's achievements with the same enthusiasm we had shown for Sophia's college acceptance. By morning, I was exhausted, having slept maybe 2 hours total. The house felt charged with negative energy, both girls giving each other, and me the silent treatment over breakfast. I gulped down coffee, hoping it would clear the fog in my brain, and reminded myself that this phase would pass. Once Sophia left for college, things would calm down. Jasmine and I would find a new rhythm. We just needed to get through the next few weeks. What I didn't realize was that we wouldn't make it through the next 24 hours before everything fell apart. The house reflected my mental state that morning, cluttered, disorganized, tense. Breakfast dishes sat unwashed in the sink. Laundry waited to be folded on the living room couch. Half-packed boxes of Sophia's belongings created obstacles in the hallway. The physical chaos mirrored the emotional turmoil brewing just beneath the surface of our family life, ready to erupt with the slightest provocation. And that provocation would come sooner than any of us expected, in the form of a missing set of car keys and one thoughtless decision. August 15th. The date is burned into my memory like a brand. 10 years later, I still wake up on August 15th with a heaviness in my chest, knowing it's the anniversary of the day I lost my daughter. The morning had started badly and deteriorated from there. Sophia had slept through her alarm and rushed through breakfast, barely speaking to either Jasmine or me. Jasmine had an important interview that afternoon for a photography internship she had been excited about for weeks. She had laid out her portfolio and outfit the night before and spent the morning reviewing her talking points while I made lunch. "You're going to do great," I told her, trying to infuse my voice with an enthusiasm I didn't feel after my sleepless night. "Remember what we practiced: speak slowly, make eye contact, let your passion for photography come through." Jasmine nodded, her face a mixture of excitement and nerves. "Thanks, Mom. The interview's at 3, so I'll leave around 2:30 to make sure I have plenty of time." "Good plan," I said, kissing her forehead. "I have a client meeting until 4, but text me as soon as you're done. I want to hear everything." The morning passed in relative calm. Sophia remained in her room, presumably packing for college. Jasmine reviewed her portfolio one last time before going to take a shower and get ready. I left for my client meeting just after 1, grateful for the temporary escape from the tense atmosphere at home. My meeting ended early, around 3:30, and I decided to pick up a small cake to celebrate Jasmine's interview, assuming it had gone well. It was a peace offering of sorts, a way to show her that I noticed and valued her accomplishments. I walked through the front door at 3:45, cake in hand, to find World War III erupting in my living room. Jasmine was standing in the center of the room, still in her interview clothes, face streaked with mascara. tears, screaming at Sophia, who leaned against the wall with arms crossed defensively. "You ruined everything!" Jasmine shouted. "Do you understand that everything—" "It's not my fault you didn't tell me you needed the car," Sophia replied, her tone infuriatingly calm compared to Jasmine's distress. "I did tell you. I told everyone I've been talking about this interview for weeks." I set down the cake and stepped between them. "What happened, Jasmine? I thought your interview was at 3? Jasmine turned to me, her face crumpling. "It was. I missed it. I missed the biggest opportunity of my life because she jabbed a finger towards Sophia, took my car without asking and didn't answer her phone when I tried to call her." I looked at Sophia, who at least had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. "Is this true? You took Jasmine's car knowing she had an interview." "I didn't know she needed it today specifically," Sophia said, examining her nails. "I just went to say goodbye to Madison before I leave for college. It's not that big a deal. She can reschedule." "Not that big a deal?" Jasmine's voice rose to a near shriek. "I've been preparing for this for months. The internship position will be filled by the time they could reschedule." "Well, maybe if you had a social life, instead of obsessing over your little pictures, you wouldn't be so upset about one missed appointment," Sophia shot back. "Enough," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sophia, you know the rule. You ask before taking someone else's car." "Oh my God, here we go again." Sophia rolled her eyes. Mom taking Jasmine's side as usual. "What?" I blinked in confusion. "That's not what's happening here." "It is what's happening," Jasmine interjected. "For once in your life, you're actually acknowledging that Sophia did something wrong instead of making excuses for her." "I don't make excuses for her," I protested. "Yes, you do." Both girls shouted in unison before glaring at each other. "Sophia gets away with everything," Jasmine continued. "She breaks curfew, you forgive her. She fails a class, you hire her a tutor. She wrecks your car, you buy her a new one. That's not fair," I said. "I've been equally supportive of both of you." Sophia laughed harshly. "Equally supportive? Please. You've been on Jasmine's case since I got into Cornell. Nothing I do is good enough anymore. It's all Jasmine, this Jasmine that." "That's insane," Jasmine said. "Mom has always favored you. Everyone knows you're the favorite daughter." "If I'm the favorite, why does Mom criticize everything I do?" Sophia demanded. "Why does she always take your side in arguments?" "She doesn't. She always defends you." They both turned to me, expectant, demanding I declare a winner in their twisted competition for my affection. My head was pounding, blood pressure rising as I stood trapped between my two daughters, both convinced the other was my favorite. "Girls, please," I begged. "I love you both. Equally. Differently because you are different people with different needs, but equally." "Bull!" Sophia spat. "You've always loved Jasmine more. She's your perfect little angel who never causes problems." "That's not true," Jasmine countered. "You've always given Sophia special treatment because she was your first. You even named her after your grandmother." "At least I was wanted," Sophia shouted. "Mom and Dad were actually trying to have me. You were just an oops baby they got stuck with." The room fell silent. That was a lie. A cruel, invented detail that Sophia fabricated in the heat of argument. Neither of my pregnancies had been planned, but neither had been unwelcome either. But before I could correct this falsehood, Jasmine's face crumpled. "Is that true?" she asked me, voice small. "No, of course not," I began, but Sophia interrupted. "Mom told me when I was 13, she lied smoothly. You were a mistake, but they decided to keep you anyway." "Stop it, Sophia," I said sharply. "That's absolutely untrue." "See?" Sophia turned to Jasmine with a triumphant smile. "She's defending you again. Can't even let you hear the truth." The truth. I felt something snap inside me. Hours of lost sleep, weeks of constant fighting, months of work stress, and years of single parenting came crashing down in one horrible moment. You want the truth? Fine. I turned to Sophia, my voice shaking with rage I couldn't contain. You were a mistake, not your sister. I didn't plan to have you, but I chose to keep you anyway. And I've been paying for that decision for 18 years. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Sophia's face went completely blank, then crumpled in a way I'd never seen before. Jasmine gasped, hands flying to her mouth, and I stood there, the awful truth of what I'd just said washing over me like ice water. Sophia, I whispered, reaching for her. Baby, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. She stepped back from my outstretched hand as if it might burn her. Without a word, she turned and walked slowly up the stairs. No dramatics, no slammed door, just a quiet retreat that was somehow more devastating than any tantrum could have been. Jasmine looked at me with an expression of horror I'll never forget. Mom, she whispered. How could you say that to her? I had no answer. I stood frozen in my living room, the cake I'd bought to celebrate Jasmine's interview, sitting forgotten on the table as my entire world collapsed around me. Time becomes strange in moments of crisis. The next few hours passed in a blur of desperate attempts to undo what couldn't be undone. I stood outside Sophia's locked bedroom door, alternating between tearful apologies and desperate pleas. Sophia, please open the door. I didn't mean it. I was angry and exhausted, and I said something terrible that isn't true. Silence. Baby, please. You have to know how much I love you. From the moment I knew I was pregnant, you were wanted. You were loved. You are loved. Nothing. I slid down the wall beside her door, pulling my knees to my chest like a child. Sophia, everyone says things they don't mean when they're angry. Please give me a chance to make this right. The silence from her room was absolute. I couldn't even hear her moving around or crying. Just complete stillness that terrified me more than screams would have. I wrote notes and slipped them under her door. I love you more than anything in this world. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. Please forgive me. Each note disappeared under the door into the vacuum of Sophia's silence. I texted her, though I knew her phone would be right beside her. I was wrong. What I said was unforgivable. But I'm begging you to try to forgive me anyway. I've never regretted having you for a single second of my life. Please talk to me. Read receipts showed she saw the messages, but no reply came. At some point, Jasmine brought me a glass of water and a blanket, her own eyes red from crying. She's really hurt, Mom, Jasmine said quietly. I've never seen her like this. I know, I whispered. I've ruined everything. Jasmine sat beside me, leaning her head on my shoulder. She'll forgive you. She has to. Around midnight, I finally gave up my vigil and went to bed, though not to sleep. I lay staring at the ceiling, playing the scene over and over in my head, imagining all the things I should have said instead, all the ways I could have diffused the situation before it exploded. Sometime before dawn, I must have drifted into a fitful sleep because I woke with a start at 7 a.m. The house was unnaturally quiet. I rushed to Sophia's door, still closed, and knocked softly. Sophia, can we talk now, please? When no answer came, I tried the handle. To my surprise, it turned easily. The door swung open to reveal an immaculate empty room. The bed was made closet, partially empty desk, cleared of the normal teenage clutter. On the pillow lay Sophia's phone, the one she was never without, and a single sheet of paper. With trembling hands, I picked up the note and read the words that would haunt me for years to come. I was a mistake to you. You're dead to me now. My legs gave out, and I sank onto her bed, clutching the note to my chest. I don't know how long I sat there before Jasmine found me. Mom, what's wrong? Where's Sophia? She's gone, I whispered. She left in the night. Panic set in. I called every one of Sophia's friends, my voice growing increasingly desperate with each conversation. Have you seen Sophia? Is she with you? When did you last hear from her? Most knew nothing. A few had received strange cryptic texts from her the night before, but hadn't thought much of it. Finally, Madison's mother provided a clue. She asked if Sophia could stay the night, but I said no because we have family visiting. She mentioned something about maybe staying with her dad instead. Daniel, of course. I thanked her and immediately called my ex-husband, but the call went straight to voicemail. I left a frantic message, then grabbed my keys. Stay here in case she comes back, I told Jasmine. Call me immediately if you hear anything. I broke several speed limits driving across town to Daniel's house, rehearsing what I would say to Sophia when I saw her. I would beg, plead, humble myself completely if that's what it took to earn her forgiveness. Daniel's car was in the driveway, along with another I didn't recognize, probably his girlfriend's. I ran to the door and pounded until he answered, still in pajama pants and looking irritated. Faith, what the hell? Is she here? Is Sophia here? I need to see her. Daniel's expression hardened. Yes, she's here. No, you can't see her. Daniel, please. I need to explain. There was a terrible fight, and I said something awful, and I know what you said. He cut me off coldly. She told me everything. How could you, Faith? How could you tell our daughter she was a mistake? I didn't mean it. I sobbed past caring how I looked or sounded. I was angry and tired, and the girls were fighting, and I just snapped. Please, Daniel, 5 minutes. Just let me tell her I'm sorry. She doesn't want to see you. His voice was implacable. She asked me to tell you that she's staying here until college starts and she doesn't want any contact with you. She's 18, Daniel. She's legally an adult, but she's still my daughter and I need to make this right. Some things can't be made right, Faith, he said quietly. Some wounds don't heal. Sophia asked me to give you a message. She said to tell you that as far as she's concerned, she doesn't have a mother anymore. The words hit me like physical blows. I stumbled backward, clutching the porch railing for support. No, I whispered. No, she doesn't mean that. She can't mean that. She does, Daniel said, and I could see something like pity in his eyes beneath the anger. I've never seen her like this, Faith. She's not crying or screaming. She's just empty, like something inside her broke. Let me try, I begged. Let me try to fix this. Not now. Maybe not ever. I think you should go. He started to close the door, but I wedged my foot against it. Tell her I love her. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I'll wait however long it takes. Daniel nodded once, then gently but firmly moved my foot and closed the door. I collapsed on his front steps, sobbing uncontrollably, not caring that his neighbors were watching from their windows or that a mail carrier was staring as he passed. My world had ended. Nothing else mattered. Eventually, I managed to drive home, though I have no memory of the journey. Jasmine was waiting, hope in her eyes that died when she saw me enter alone. She's at Dad's, I said numbly. She doesn't want to see me. She'll come around, Jasmine said, but her voice lacked conviction. That night, Jasmine and I sat at the dinner table, both of us staring at Sophia's empty chair. We barely spoke, the weight of her absence pressing down on us like a physical thing. I pushed food around my plate, unable to eat. "Is this how it's going to be now?" Jasmine finally asked. "Just the two of us?" I looked at my younger daughter, suddenly looking so much older than her 16 years, and felt a fresh wave of grief. In trying to referee between my daughters and failing to control my temper, for just one crucial moment I had broken our family beyond repair. "I don't know, sweetheart," I answered honestly. "I hope not. I hope Sophia will forgive me eventually." But as I lay awake that night, staring at family photos on my bedroom wall, tears streaming into my hair, I had a terrible feeling that eventually might never come. The first week after Sophia left, I existed in a state of disbelief. Surely this was temporary. Surely she would cool down, recognize my sincere remorse, and come home. I called Daniel's house every day until he finally told me to stop, that my calls were only making things worse. I sent text messages to her friends asking them to pass messages to her since she'd left her phone behind. I drove past Daniel's house at odd hours hoping for a glimpse of her. When it became clear that Sophia wasn't coming home before leaving for college, I packed up all the dorm supplies we had bought together and dropped them off at Daniel's while I knew he would be at work. I included a letter, pouring out my heart, begging for forgiveness, explaining that I had spoken from a place of exhaustion and anger, not truth. I later learned from Daniel that Sophia had refused to take any of it, telling him to donate everything. The day she was supposed to leave for Cornell, I parked down the street from Daniel's house and watched them load her suitcases into his car. She looked thinner, paler, but walked with a straight back and determined steps. I wanted to run to her to hold her one more time before she left. But I remained in my car, tears streaming down my face, respecting the boundaries she had set even as they tore me apart. The days became weeks. I kept her room exactly as she had left it, door open, waiting for her return. I sent care packages to her college address, filling them with her favorite snacks, photos of happier times, and letters expressing my love and regret. The packages came back unopened, returned to sender, scrawled across them in handwriting I didn't recognize, probably her roommate's. Jasmine watched my deterioration with increasing concern. I was going through the motions of life, working, cooking, paying bills, but I wasn't really living. I lost weight, lost sleep, lost interest in everything that had once brought me joy. "Mom, you need help," Jasmine finally said one evening when she found me sitting in Sophia's room holding her childhood teddy bear. "This isn't healthy for either of us." She was right. With her encouragement, I found a therapist who specialized in family trauma and estrangement. Dr. Levine didn't offer easy answers or false hope. Instead, she helped me understand that I couldn't control Sophia's response, only my own actions. "You've apologized," she told me during one session. "You've made it clear you want to reconcile. Now you have to find a way to live with the uncertainty of whether that will ever happen." Those words felt impossible. How could I live knowing I had wounded my child so deeply that she would rather cut me from her life than face me again? How could I accept that one moment of anger might have permanent consequences? "This isn't just about what you said," Dr. Levine explained gently. "Your words tapped into something deeper. Perhaps feelings Sophia had been harboring for years about her place in the family, about your relationship. The incident was the trigger, but the gun was already loaded, if you understand the metaphor." I did understand, though it brought little comfort. If years of perceived favoritism or neglect had created the conditions for Sophia's complete rejection of me, how could I ever hope to repair such deep damage? As weeks turned to months, I developed a routine of attempted contact. Birthday and Christmas gifts returned unopened. Monthly letters sent to her college address with no way of knowing if she read them or immediately threw them away. I maintained a social media presence solely in hopes she might check it and see how much I missed her. My relationship with Jasmine evolved during this time. Without Sophia as a buffer or competitor for attention, we grew closer, though there was always a shadow between us. The knowledge that our tighter bond had come at the expense of our family's wholeness. "Do you ever hear from her?" I would ask Jasmine, occasionally trying to sound casual and failing miserably. "Sometimes," Jasmine would admit reluctantly. "Short texts on my birthday or Christmas. Nothing personal." "Does she ever mention me?" "No, Mom, she doesn't." The pain would flare fresh each time, but I wouldn't press further. I didn't want to put Jasmine in the middle more than she already was. My career suffered as I struggled with depression. Clients noticed my lack of enthusiasm, my inability to generate the creative solutions that had once been my trademark. I began losing projects, which created financial stress on top of emotional distress. Some days, getting out of bed felt like climbing Mount Everest. Through therapy and Jasmine's patient support, I slowly began to rebuild my life around the Sophia-shaped hole at its center. I joined a support group for parents estranged from their children and found comfort in knowing I wasn't alone, though the circumstances varied widely. Some parents had lost children to addiction, others to controlling partners, still others to religious or political differences. My story, a single angry sentence that destroyed a relationship, seemed simultaneously trivial and devastating in comparison. Daniel provided occasional updates, though he made it clear he wasn't taking sides. "She's doing well academically," he might say, "making friends, joining clubs." Never details about her emotional state or whether she ever spoke of me. For her 20th birthday, I created a photo album chronicling her life from birth through high school graduation. I included funny stories, memories of milestones, expressions of pride in the person she had become. Daniel agreed to pass it along, but warned me not to get my hopes up. When I asked him later if she had accepted it, he just shook his head sadly. The cruel irony of my situation wasn't lost on me. I had told Sophia in a moment of anger that I'd been paying for the decision to keep her for 18 years. Now I was truly paying emotionally, psychologically, financially, and the pain was beyond anything I could have imagined. If I could have taken back those words by cutting off my own arm, I would have done it without hesitation. My apartment became a shrine of sorts. Photos of Sophia covered the walls and shelves. Baby pictures, school portraits, candid shots of happier times. Jasmine noticed, but never commented, understanding this was my way of keeping Sophia present in a life from which she had removed herself. 4 years passed this way. I learned through Daniel that Sophia would be graduating from Cornell with honors. I asked if I could attend the ceremony sitting far away where she wouldn't see me. He relayed the request and returned with her answer, "Tell her no." Instead, I sent flowers to her dorm with a simple note, "Congratulations, all my love, Mom." Daniel later told me she donated them to a nursing home without reading the card. In her 5th year of estrangement, I discovered through social media that Sophia was engaged. One of her college friends had tagged her in wedding planning photos. She looked beautiful, happy grown up in ways I had missed. I studied every pixel of those images, hungry for details about the woman my daughter had become without me. The man beside her in the photos seemed kind. He had his arm around her protectively, and the way she leaned into him spoke of trust and comfort. I wrote her a letter congratulating her, expressing how happy I was that she had found love, and begging to be allowed to attend her wedding, even if seated in the back, even if we didn't speak. "I just want to see you take this step in your life," I wrote. "I've missed so much already. Please don't let me miss this too." No response came. Through Daniel, I learned the wedding would be in June. June came and went. I sat home alone on what I knew to be her wedding day, looking at her childhood photos and weeping for all I had lost through my own terrible mistake. As my 50th birthday approached, I found myself taking stock of my life in a way I hadn't before. 10 years had passed since those fatal words left my lips. 10 years of apologies, regret, and silence. 10 years of paying for 7 seconds of anger with a lifetime of sorrow. My therapist, who had stood by me through this entire journey, suggested it might be time for one final attempt at reconciliation. Not because Sophia owed me forgiveness, she didn't, but because I needed to know I had truly tried everything before accepting that some relationships cannot be mended. "What's the worst that can happen?" Dr. Levine asked during our session. "She already doesn't speak to you. But what if there's even a small chance that enough time has passed for her to be open to conversation?" That tiny ember of hope was enough to sustain me through the careful preparation for this last effort. I spent weeks crafting a letter that acknowledged the harm I had done without making excuses that expressed my enduring love, without demanding a response that offered a path to reconciliation, without pressuring her to take it. "I understand now that what I said touched a deeper wound," I wrote. "Perhaps you had felt unwanted or less important long before I spoke those terrible words. If so, I failed you in ways beyond that one moment, and for that, I am profoundly sorry too." While working on the letter, I gathered photographs of Sophia from birth through her last day at home. I arranged them chronologically in a beautiful album, adding brief captions that highlighted her growth, her achievements, her uniqueness. It was important to me that she see in concrete form how precious she had always been to me. As I was finalizing these preparations, Jasmine called with news that changed everything. "Mom, I don't know if I should tell you this," she began hesitantly. "Tell me what—" My heart immediately began racing. "Sophia had a baby, a little girl, 3 months ago." The world stopped spinning. I had a granddaughter I hadn't known existed. Sophia had been pregnant, had given birth, had become a mother herself, all without my knowledge. "How did you find out?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Dad told me. He's been visiting them. He didn't want to tell you because Sophia made him promise not to, but he feels really conflicted about it. He thinks you have a right to know you're a grandmother." A grandmother. The word echoed in my head, beautiful and painful simultaneously. I thought of all the advice I would have given Sophia during her pregnancy, all the ways I would have supported her, all the love I would have showered on my grandchild, all lost to one moment of anger a decade ago. This knowledge gave my reconciliation attempt new urgency. I was no longer just a mother seeking forgiveness from her daughter. I was a grandmother who had never met her grandchild. The thought was unbearable. Through careful questioning of Daniel, who finally admitted what Jasmine had already told me, I learned that Sophia and her husband had moved to Vermont after college. They had bought a small house in a town about 4 hours' drive from me. Daniel provided the address, reluctantly extracting a promise that I wouldn't show up unannounced or do anything to upset Sophia. I finished my letter, adding a paragraph about my joy at learning of my granddaughter's birth, and my deep wish to be part of her life in whatever way Sophia might allow. I completed the photo album, leaving blank pages at the end, with the hopeful note, "For new memories we might make together." The drive to Vermont was both the longest and shortest of my life. Every mile brought me closer to potential reconciliation or final rejection. I rehearsed what I would say if Sophia answered the door, tried to prepare myself for all possible reactions. But nothing could have prepared me for the reality of standing on her porch after 10 years of separation. The house was lovely, a small Cape Cod with blue shutters and a well-tended garden. Children's toys dotted the front yard, evidence of my unknown granddaughter. I stood for several minutes just looking at this physical manifestation of the life Sophia had built without me gathering courage before finally approaching the door. My hand shook as I rang the bell. I clutched my letter and the photo album to my chest like armor. Footsteps approached from inside, and the door opened to reveal a man I recognized from social media photos, Sophia's husband. "Can I help you?" he asked pleasantly, no recognition in his eyes. My prepared speech evaporated. "I'm Faith," I managed. "Sophia's mother." His expression changed immediately, friendly smile replaced by wariness. "Oh, I see. Is she home? Could I speak with her, just for a moment?" He hesitated, clearly conflicted. "Let me check if she wants to talk." He closed the door partially and disappeared into the house. I stood waiting, heart pounding so loudly I was sure it could be heard through the door. Minutes passed that felt like hours. Finally, the door opened again, and there she was, Sophia, my firstborn. 10 years older, but instantly, achingly familiar. Her face had matured fine lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before her hair shorter than I remembered. But her eyes were the same, my eyes looking back at me with none of the warmth they once held. "Sophia," I breathed, drinking in the sight of her. "You look beautiful." She said nothing, her expression carefully neutral, arms crossed protectively over her chest. "I'm sorry to come unannounced," I continued into the silence. "I wrote you a letter, and I made this for you." I held out the album and envelope with trembling hands. She made no move to take them. "Why are you here after all this time?" "I've tried to reach you many times over the years," I said softly. "Letters, gifts, they all came back. I thought maybe in person." "You thought wrong," she interrupted coldly. "Nothing has changed." "Sophia, please. It's been 10 years. I've paid for those cruel words every day since I said them." Her face hardened. "And I've lived with them every day. Do you think time erases what you said? Do you think I didn't spend my entire college experience wondering if I really was unwanted? If everything you ever told me about loving me was a lie?" "It wasn't," I said desperately. "Those words were a lie. Everything else, all the love, all the pride, all the joy you brought me, that was the truth." She looked away, jaw tight. "I can't do this. I have a daughter now. I need to protect her from people who might hurt her the way you hurt me." The knowledge that she considered me a threat to my own granddaughter was more painful than anything I could have imagined. "I would never hurt her," I whispered, "just as I never meant to hurt you. One terrible mistake shouldn't erase a lifetime of love." "But it did," she said simply. "It does." She began to close the door. In desperation, I placed the album and letter on the welcome mat. "Please," I said, "just read it. And if you still want nothing to do with me afterward, I'll respect that. I promise." Sophia looked down at the offering, then back at my face. For just a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something, uncertainty perhaps, or a ghost of the connection we once shared. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Goodbye, Faith," she said, and closed the door. I stood on the porch for several minutes, unable to move, hoping against hope that she would change her mind and open the door again. Eventually, I returned to my car and sat there crying until I had no tears left. Before driving away, I looked back at the house one last time, catching a brief movement at an upstairs window, Sophia watching to make sure I left. I drove halfway home before pulling into a motel parking lot, too emotionally exhausted to continue. That night, I called Daniel. "I saw her," I said when he answered, a heavy sigh. I told you not to go there, Faith. I had to try. She wouldn't take the album or letter. She called me Faith, not Mom. What did you expect? His voice was gentle despite the harsh words. That 10 years of hurt would just disappear because you showed up on her doorstep? No, I whispered. But I hoped for a conversation, a chance. Sophia threw away your album as soon as you left, Daniel said. She called me right after. She was upset that you found her address, that you came without warning. The finality of his words broke something in me that had been barely holding together for years. I collapsed into sobs so violent they frightened me. Daniel stayed on the phone listening to my breakdown without comment. When I could finally speak again, I asked, "What's her name?" "My granddaughter. Please tell me her name at least." A long pause. "I can't, Faith. I'm sorry." I ended the call and lay staring at the ceiling of the cheap motel room, a hollowness expanding inside me that threatened to consume everything. By morning, I could barely function. I managed to drive home somehow, but the next few days passed in a blur of grief more acute than anything I had experienced before. Jasmine found me in this state when she came to check on me after I missed our weekly phone call. She took one look at me and called an ambulance. I was hospitalized for what they called an acute stress reaction, but what I recognized as the final collapse of hope. In the sterile hospital room, with Jasmine keeping worried vigil beside me, I finally understood that some damage cannot be undone. Some words cannot be taken back. Some relationships cannot be restored, no matter how desperately we wish to fix them. The hospital stay marked a turning point in my journey. After 3 days under observation, I was released with a referral to a new therapist who specialized in grief and loss. Dr. Winters introduced me to the concept of radical acceptance, the idea that fighting against a reality I couldn't change was causing me more suffering than the reality itself. Acceptance doesn't mean you approve of the situation, she explained during our first session. It means you stop expending energy fighting against what is so you can direct that energy toward living the life you still have. This approach was different from anything I'd tried before. Rather than focusing on strategies to reconnect with Sophia, we worked on building a meaningful life within the parameters of her absence. It felt like a betrayal at first, as if I were abandoning my daughter all over again. But gradually, I began to understand that accepting the estrangement wasn't the same as being okay with it. You can hold two truths simultaneously, Dr. Winters told me. You can accept that Sophia may never want a relationship with you again, and you can continue to love her and hold space for her in your heart. Acceptance is not about closing the door. It's about not standing in the doorway, waiting indefinitely. My healing wasn't linear. There were days when I would find myself driving past Daniel's house out of habit, even though Sophia hadn't lived there in years. Birthdays, holidays, and random Tuesday afternoons could trigger waves of grief that felt as fresh as the day she left. But slowly, steadily, I began reconstructing my identity around the wound rather than despite it. I rebuilt my interior design business, focusing on creating healing spaces for clients going through difficult transitions, divorce, bereavement, empty nest. My own experience with loss informed my work in ways that made it more authentic and compassionate. My relationship with Jasmine deepened, though I was careful not to burden her with the role of replacement daughter. She was in graduate school now studying psychology, perhaps influenced by watching her family fracture and the subsequent healing process. We spoke openly about the estrangement, but I never asked her to be a go-between or to report on Sophia's life. You know, Jasmine said during one of our coffee dates, I was so angry with both of you for so long, at Sophia for leaving and never looking back at you for saying what you said. I understand, I replied, reaching for her hand across the table. You had every right to be angry. I'm not anymore, she said. I've realized that what happened between you and Sophia isn't the whole story of our family. It's a tragic chapter, but not the entire book. Her wisdom moved me to tears. My younger daughter had found a perspective that had eluded me for years. 2 years after my failed visit to Vermont, I began volunteering at a center for at-risk teens. Many of these young people had difficult relationships with their parents, and while my situation was different, I understood something about family wounds that couldn't be easily healed. I didn't offer advice or share my story unless asked, but I provided a listening ear and unwavering support as they navigated their own complex family dynamics. This work became a form of atonement, though Dr. Winters cautioned me against viewing it solely in those terms. Service to others should come from a place of genuine care, not just to assuage guilt, she reminded me. But the truth was, helping these teens did ease my pain. It couldn't replace my relationship with Sophia, but it gave meaning to my suffering. One evening, about 6 months into my volunteer work, Jasmine called with unexpected news. Mom, don't get too excited, but Sophia saw your social media post about the teen center. My heart raced. How do you know? She mentioned it to Dad, who told me. She didn't say much, just that she saw it. I had been posting regularly about the center's activities, sharing stories with permission about the resilience and growth of the teens I worked with. I never mentioned Sophia or my own loss, focusing instead on the positive impact of the program. Did she say anything else? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. No, just that she saw it. But Mom, that means she's looking at your social media. That's something, right? Maybe, I said, cautiously, afraid to nurture hope that might be crushed again. Or maybe someone showed it to her. Let's not read too much into it. But privately, I did read into it. I imagined Sophia checking my profile regularly, watching my life from a distance. I imagined her seeing the changes in me, the work I was doing, and perhaps reconsidering her absolute stance against reconciliation. A month later, a small package arrived at my apartment. No return address, no note inside. Just a single photograph of a beautiful little girl with Sophia's eyes and smile. My granddaughter, whose name I still didn't know. I sat on my living room floor, holding that photo, overcome with emotions too complex to name. This wasn't forgiveness or reconciliation, but it was acknowledgement. It was a tiny crack in the wall Sophia had built between us. I didn't tell anyone about the photo, not even Jasmine. It felt too fragile, too sacred to share. I placed it in a silver frame on my bedside table, the first concrete evidence that I was a grandmother. On my birthday that year, I received another small envelope. Inside was a gift card to a bookstore with a small note for the Teen Center Library, S. 2 sentences, her initial, but the first direct communication from my daughter in 12 years. I cried for hours, clutching that brief note to my chest. I didn't respond directly, knowing that pushing too hard might close whatever door was cracking open. Instead, I used the gift card to purchase books for the center, and posted photos of the teens enjoying them with a simple caption. Thanks to a generous donor, our library has grown. The gift of words can change lives. For my work with the Teen Center, I established a small trust fund, setting aside a portion of my income each month. And privately, I created a second trust for my granddaughter, whether I ever met her or not. I couldn't undo the damage my words had caused, but I could ensure that something positive came from the painful lesson I had learned about the power of language. One evening, as I was preparing for bed, my phone rang with Jasmine's ringtone. I answered, expecting our usual casual conversation about her day. Mom, she said, her voice strange. "Sophia asked about you today." I sat down abruptly. "What did she say?" "She called to tell me about her daughter's dance recital, and at the end of the call, she just said, 'How's Mom?' Really casual, like she asks all the time." "What did you tell her?" I asked, barely breathing. "I told her you're doing well, that you're still working with the teens, that your business is thriving, that you're at peace, but that you still miss her every day." "And what did she say?" "Nothing directly. She just said, 'That's good,' and changed the subject. But Mom," she asked. After all this time, she asked. After we hung up, I sat in my darkened bedroom, looking at the photo of my granddaughter. Maybe this was as much reconciliation as I would ever get, occasional indirect contact, a gradual softening rather than a dramatic reunion. Maybe my granddaughter would be grown before Sophia considered allowing me into their lives, if ever. But for the first time in many years, I felt something like peace. Not because the situation had changed dramatically, but because I had. I no longer defined myself solely as the mother who lost her daughter through one terrible mistake. I was also the woman who helped troubled teens find their voice, the interior designer who created spaces of healing, the mother who maintained a loving relationship with her younger daughter, the grandmother who loved a child she had never met. My journey wasn't over. The pain hadn't disappeared, but I had learned to carry it differently, to let it inform my actions rather than paralyze me. I had learned that some wounds never heal completely, but that doesn't mean we can't live fully with our scars. As I drifted toward sleep that night, I thought about all the parents and children estranged from each other, all the words spoken in anger that couldn't be taken back, all the relationships fractured by moments of hurt that grew into years of separation. And I whispered into the darkness the truth I had learned at such great cost. Words spoken in anger last longer than the anger itself. Words have power. More power than we often realize until it's too late. One sentence, 7 seconds long, cost me 10 years with my daughter and counting. If my story has taught me anything, it's that we must choose our words carefully, especially with those we love most. The journey from that terrible August day to where I am now has been the hardest of my life. Learning to live with the consequences of my actions, to accept responsibility without being crushed by guilt, to rebuild a life around an absence that may never be filled. These have been my greatest challenges and ultimately my most profound lessons. Through therapy, I've come to understand that while I cannot control Sophia's response to my apologies, I can control how I live my own life going forward. I can choose to be the kind of person who learns from mistakes rather than being defined by them. I can choose to channel my regret into helping others avoid similar pain. The teens I work with at the center often ask why I volunteer so many hours there. I tell them simply that I understand how easily relationships can break and how difficult they can be to repair. Some of them know pieces of my story shared when it might help them see their own family conflicts differently. Most just know me as the woman who listens without judgment, who believes in second chances, who treats their words and feelings with the respect and care they deserve. My relationship with Jasmine has become one of my greatest blessings. She has every right to resent me for fracturing our family, to blame me for the loss of her sister. But instead, she has shown remarkable compassion and wisdom. She visits regularly, calls often, and never makes me feel like I'm clinging to her as a replacement for Sophia. "You know what I've realized, Mom?" she said during a recent visit. "That dinner Sophia missed, the one right after she left, that was just the first of hundreds we've had without her. And they've been good dinners, different than they would have been with her, but still good. That's what life is, learning to find joy, even in the aftermath of loss." The photograph of my granddaughter remains on my bedside table, joined now by two others that have arrived over the years, one of her in a dance costume, another of her playing soccer. No notes accompany these photos, but their message is clear enough. Sophia wants me to know her daughter exists, wants me to see her growing up even if from a distance. I've created a special box for my granddaughter, filling it with letters she may never read. Small gifts she may never receive, stories about her mother as a child that she may never hear. If reconciliation ever comes, this box will be waiting. If not, at least, I will have honored the connection I feel to her, regardless of whether we ever meet. Last month, I received the most significant communication yet from Sophia, a text message on my birthday that read simply, "Happy birthday. Emily says happy birthday to her grandmother too." Emily. My granddaughter's name is Emily. After 14 years of estrangement, Sophia had given me this precious gift, her daughter's name, and the acknowledgement that I am indeed her grandmother. I didn't overreact. I didn't flood her with questions or declarations of love. I simply replied, "Thank you. Please tell Emily her grandmother loves her very much, even though we haven't met yet." Sophia didn't respond, and I didn't expect her to. This tiny exchange represented more progress than I had dared to hope for in years. It was a small piece of the relationship I longed for, but a significant one. I don't know what the future holds for Sophia and me. I don't know if Emily will grow up knowing me or only knowing of me. I don't know if the bridge between us can ever be fully rebuilt after such complete destruction. But I know that I will keep the porch light on, metaphorically speaking, for as long as I live. The lesson in all of this, the wisdom I would share with anyone who will listen, is simple but profound. Words spoken in anger can cause wounds that never fully heal. Choose them carefully. And if you find yourself on either side of such a wound, remember that healing doesn't always look like complete reconciliation. Sometimes it looks like small steps taken over many years. Sometimes it looks like finding peace despite ongoing pain. To those of you watching who have experienced family estrangement, whether as the one who left or the one left behind, know that you're not alone. Your story isn't over yet. Neither is mine. I'd like to ask you something before you go. Have you ever experienced a moment where words changed everything in a relationship? Have you found healing after deep hurt, or are you still searching for it? Share your experiences in the comments below your story. Might help someone else who's walking a similar path. If this story touched you, please consider subscribing to this channel for more real-life experiences. Your support helps these stories reach others who might need to hear. They're not alone in their struggles. Thank you for listening to my story. May you speak and be spoken to with kindness, always remembering the power your words hold, both to wound and eventually, perhaps, to heal.